By now, the not-so-tragic news regarding one of the most prominent ambassadors to this channel, Mark Thornton from the channel Every Man Has a Story, has reached the deepest, darkest Asian expat corners of the internet. Mark was visited by the Grim Reaper on Friday the 13th, the last Black Friday in the year 2024. Mark will always be remembered as an ambassador to the content direction of this channel. Observe the facts. Not only was Mark broke by the time he reached retirement age, he couldn't find a job as well, and so after unsuccessfully attempting to end his own life, he moved over to Southeast Asia, having already applied to a freelance platform and not to live out retirement age like anyone would assume. Each person has their own view and take on Mark, and this video is not intended to change or alter that view, but rather provide a different perspective to the incredibly insane life of this Philippines YouTube expat personality who was desperate enough to grace the virtual stage with his series of failures in life, which ultimately brought him out east in search of a new beginning. Following his passing, still lying cold on steel when the wifey Jen, from Every Woman Has a Story, was swift to change her channel name to Gen TV Philippines. Mark led as the classic example of what we don't want here in the Philippines. Again, the Philippines is not a retirement home for old and often broke, lonely, washed-up men from prestigious Western countries. It is not a cheap paradise for those who cannot survive in their native country. Mark often swept foreigners off their feet with cheap fairy tales of a working-class American who was in fact struggling on his feet till his very last breath. The e-begging continued into his afterlife as his young family launched GoFundMe campaigns to help farewell him. In 6 years, one broke old low Affectionately known as Mark Titanic Thornton to critics of his channel, he was a retired art director who failed to end his days earlier with a rope. He was saved by the fact that his mother did not go out to play bingo with her friends that fateful afternoon. He knew his mother's schedule and had conveniently set up his own demise, but never had the guts to carry it out with his mother still in the same vicinity. The thought of her finding him in his demise and by his own hand didn't sit well with his conscience, and so he postponed his date with the Grim Reaper and soon set his eyes on the Philippines. Mark arrived in Dumaguete as a suicide survivor right before COVID hit, after being inspired by Paul McGill from Old Dog New Tricks, and was teaching English online to make ends meet. He ran into Paul one afternoon and the two of them hit it off like bisexual lovers, ultimately moving into the same compound with their soon-to-be wives. With the help of Paul Old Dog New Tricks and others doing YouTube, Mark managed to launch a money-making scheme that is now trying to be turned into a legacy. What legacy? Mark found a sense of pride that he had lost in America, and the bitterness of this still stuck with him till his very last day perhaps. He treated life here as being in another state of America where the exchange rate favored what he could scrape by. Mark lived the life of a slave, laboring each day to make ends meet. He never got to enjoy full retirement and couldn't handle all the pressure with the arrival of his new son. He is a lesson to everyone. The Philippines and its people are not remedies or a cure for the screw-ups who can't even afford to live in their own first-class country of origin. Is this what we want the Philippines to be amongst expats? An after-school project for retirees looking for compassion and love in their broken lives by building monuments and heirlooms for their Filipino in-laws and then seeking glorification on social media for views. Mark's life and testament to this land was one of self-gain and spoke nothing of its native people and the culture that they are known for, as friendly, hospitable and still trying to find their place in the world as a former colony. The Philippines does not need to change for anyone. This is not a third-class second chance for those who cannot afford to survive in their own country of origin. Mark came here to feed off the country and its people, and that's just what he did. Like their colonizers whom they fought off did before him. He left this country with nothing but liabilities and a negative mindset of this being the 51st state of America, where everything is cheap and people are robots, programmed to be friendly. While the country can be affordable in comparison to Western nations, luxury accommodations, fine dining, and other Western amenities can significantly increase living costs. Those hoping for a budget lifestyle may find that their expectations do not match the reality of modern Filipino society. Moving over here shouldn't be a desperation move or a move made out of desperation. The country already has enough in-house problems to deal with. While the Philippines can still offer an attractive lifestyle for expatriates, the idea of it being a cheap paradise is increasingly misleading. For most people like Mark who leveraged money to entice society, he had no real friends aside from those who were in the same sunken ship as him, especially his wife. Mark lived the life of a slave, laboring each day to make ends meet. He never got to enjoy full retirement and couldn't handle all the pressure with the arrival of his new son. He is a lesson to everyone. Mark was a broke and lonely expat who was able to make a living for himself by biting off content and providing his own often delusional perspective that spoke of erasing value in search of humanity for self-gain. That was his quest, far from the community of locals that lived around him for centuries. You don't have to be old and miserable, searching for a time, place or person to make yourself happy. That has never been the case in any of life's philosophies. Never place your happiness in someone else's hands. The life and times of Mark Thornton stand as a legacy of what we don't want to see here as expats or visitors. The Philippines is not a retirement home for broke old men seeking cheap caregivers. It is not a remedy for mental illness. It is not a selling point for e-begging. Perhaps the biggest legacy that Mark left behind